Welcome
Brilliant.
everybody. It's great to have you on the webinar this morning. Thank you for taking time out. I hope you've got a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Just a little bit about us before we get started and before I hand over to Ruth. I'm Jen. I'm co-founder of Prospect Change alongside Ruth. Ruth, Asha, and Dev will also introduce themselves shortly as well. But by way of an introduction to Prospect Change, we always kind of give a little bit of information before we make a start on the content of the webinar. Prospect Change was founded in 2022, so we're in our 4th year now. It's founded by myself and Ruth. We are based in Bradford, West Yorkshire in the UK. And we set up to support organisations in the setup, coordination, oversight and delivery of projects, programmes and portfolios of change. And many of you will know that as PMO. We have 2 missions. One is to support organisations in the successful delivery of their projects and programmes, saving them time and money. But we also have another side to us. It's a bit of a passion of ours to put PMO on the education map and professionalising its value, because it doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist enough, certainly here in the UK. So we're on a mission to get that firmly on the education map. Just quickly hand over to Ruth, Asha, and Dev for intros. Ruth.
Thanks, Jen. Ruth Geddes. So I am a co-founder with Jen and started the business together. I work predominantly on the consultancy side of things and also support with the academy, which is the second part of our mission. I'll hand over now to Dev, please.
Hi guys, I'm Dev and I'm a business and project support officer at Prospect Change. So I help handling external and internal projects. At the moment, we got 2 students for placement, and I'm just getting to know them and getting to work with them. That's what we're doing at the moment.
Thanks, Dev. Asha? Oh, have we lost Asha?
Yeah, it seems we've got some tech issues. We'll introduce Asha later when she's able to dial in.
Yeah. Okie doke. Yeah, so the obviously you may have questions. Please do put them in the Q&A or in the chat. We will address those at the end of the webinar, just so that we can ensure continuity and let Ruth get through the content. But very happy to have any discussions or answer any questions at the end. There'll be an opportunity to do that. The webinar is recorded. We are very happy to share that after, and there's some freebies coming your way as well for joining us today. Okay, I'll hand over to yourself, Ruth.
Thanks, Jen. Today, so we are talking about strategies for rescuing struggling projects. So today, the idea is that you will walk away with the ability to recognise when your project or a project that you're overseeing is on the brink of trouble and rescue it before it's too late, because projects that spend too much time in trouble ultimately don't deliver, and the project exists for a reason. So it's about recognising those challenges and getting on top of them before it completely derails your project. We're going to go through setting the scene with a bit of a story. I'd love some interaction at that point. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So I will be asking for those, so bear that in mind. We'll talk about what's normal, because projects do face challenges. We'll look at common red flags and how to respond so that your project isn't derailed. We're going to talk about something we call the rescue strategy, and then the rescue toolkit. And of course, we wouldn't be Prospect Change if we didn't talk about the role of PMO when it comes to rescuing your projects or keeping them on track. And then how Prospect Change can support with our solutions. A bit of a story to set the scene. I want you to imagine that you are managing a project to implement a new case management system. On paper, the project is well scoped, you have clear milestones, and you are very clear with your end date, which is 6 months away. But out of nowhere, cracks are beginning to show. Red flag number 1, the silent sponsor. In steering meetings, the sponsor, who was once very vocal and very involved, starts turning up late, and in some cases not at all. And when a key risk about resourcing gaps in the development team is raised and escalated by yourself as project manager, the sponsor doesn't respond to emails for over a week. Red flag number 2, lost resource. A key software subject matter expert who's leading on system development misses the design workshop. And when you follow this up, you found that SME has been quietly reassigned to another project permanently. This was not communicated to you. There's no immediate replacement and work stalls. You missed the deadline to complete the design proof. The consequence of this is the only option now is to hire an external contractor, but there's no remaining contingency. You raise a change request for additional budget and a revised timeline, which then, of course, causes a domino effect on other dependent projects within the portfolio, delaying integrations and creating a resource clash across teams. Now, have a think. What warning signs were ignored? And 2, who holds the power to fix this? Anybody got any thoughts that they want to share on that at all? No, we're a very silent group this morning. Warning sign number 1, and we will talk about this later on, is a silent sponsor. A sponsor suddenly going quiet on you when they should be championing the project is a red flag, and it's something you need to do something about it. Who holds the power to fix this? The project manager does. You should have a governance route in which to escalate problems and escalate challenges, but ultimately, your accountable owner is that sponsor who has gone silent on you. But as project manager, there are things that you can do to keep your project on track, even in these circumstances, until you get, of course, the lost resource and the consequence. But what's normal? When do you not need to worry? Because before we get into everything that would be considered a red flag and things that could derail your project, there are going to be challenges that your project faces. That's normal. That's the life of a project manager. So when do you not need to worry? What challenges would be considered actually quite normal? Minor delays that do not impact your critical path. Scope clarifications that do not alter core objectives. A no-go decision. Now, slightly controversial, but I would say that a no-go decision is okay. It's better to get a no-go than go and find that you have irreversible consequences as a result of the change. A no-go decision on the back of strong governance is okay. It's highlighted problems that otherwise wouldn't have been highlighted, that would have resulted in you going live and being potentially in a disastrous situation, especially if we're talking about the transfer of customer data, for example. It shows that the governance has worked. Ambers and occasional reds with clear route to green do not deliver your project under the expectation that that project should remain green at all times. It's not realistic. All projects will face risks.
For a bit. Oh, Ruth, she's back now.
She's back.
Hiya, Ruth.
I'm sorry. I don't even know how far I got with all of that. My internet
Don't
just
worry.
suddenly, everything shut off.
Don't worry.
I'm going to have another go at that.
Yeah, no worries. I was just about to take over and share, but we've just said hello to Asha and done introductions. And said hello to Liz, obviously a familiar face as well. You were on the don't worry slide, and you just talked about ambers and routes to green. We just need to reshare. Would you like me to share that?
Would you, Jen? Because I'm just thinking, if I have another problem here, bear with me one second. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Can everybody see this?
Yes, we can see that. Thank you.
Yep.
Fabulous. So did we get to route to green, ambers and reds?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Fabulous.
did.
Okay, so ambers, normal, reds are normal. As long as, and I caveat it with this, there is a route to green. So you know how you're going to get your project back on track. So as long as you're clear on how you're going to get things back on track, ambers and reds are normal. Ambers with an occasional red. What else is normal? Loads of risks. The more risks, the better. As a PMO professional, when I see a risk log that is full of risks, but is kept up to date, that those risks are reducing, that they're managed at least on a bi-weekly basis, that is a really positive sign. That's a green flag for a project. Risks are nothing to worry about as long as you're keeping them under control. Team debate and challenge. As a project manager, you must welcome this. Welcome team debate and challenge. We will get into a slide later on that talks about the problems when people go silent. So that is absolutely a green flag. Unavoidable cost, timeline, or scope impacts. This links to your red reporting on your status report. These things will happen. We refer to this as the golden triangle within a project. You have your cost at one corner of the triangle, your timeline at another corner of the triangle, and a scope at the other corner of the triangle. And right there in the middle is the quality. It's about protecting your cost, your timeline, and your scope within that project. But things that are unavoidable will occasionally come across the path of a project that pushes one of those three things in another direction. As long as you're aware of that, you know how to get things back on track, and you communicate effectively, that's okay, as long as it's not happening all the time. Another, don't worry, is invalid assumptions. So something we actively encourage, and it's actually one of my most favourite processes in a project, is the management of assumptions. What are you assuming to be true that isn't a fact, but your project is relying upon it? So for example, they can be people assumptions. You are assuming a particular subject matter expert in your organisation will be free by a particular point. Until you are able to validate that as truth, capture it as an assumption. The very important next step is capture what happens if that assumption is invalid, if it's not true, because then you're prepared to respond if the assumption isn't valid. Because not all assumptions will convert to valid. It's how you manage those that is effective. Again, it's an application of governance that is important and nothing to worry about. Sponsor availability varies, but support remains stable. So yes, there will be times when your sponsor isn't available for a particular meeting, but their support remains. So they would communicate to you that they can't attend, and if you needed them, they would be reactive to that. And quality issues during testing. This feeds really well into the no-go decision. When you're doing testing, you're doing it for a reason. You're looking for everything that could possibly be wrong with the solution that the project is rolling out. So issues that are identified during quality testing is okay. Highlight them, communicate them, and look at how you can fix them so that the solution is the best it possibly can be in readiness for go live. Don't hide those under the rug. And finally, tight resources. I don't think there will be a single project happening right now that does not have tight resources, where people are not pulled in various directions, where they're not feeling that that is a risk. I think every single risk log for every single project will mention resource, because that's the reality of the world we're in today. Everybody's trying to do so much more with limited time and limited capacity. So tight resources are a reality, and those tight resources, if stretched too thin, could ultimately impact your project. So you've got to keep a close eye on them, but the fact that they are tight is not enough to cause you major worry, I would say, as a project manager. But let's get into the red flags. What's not normal? And I've called out 9 common red flags that I think you really, well, I strongly believe you really need to be looking out for, because these are the sort of things that you could sweep under the carpet, but ultimately can derail your project if you don't deal with them. Number 1, no one is quite sure what success looks like anymore. Objectives are fuzzy or continually changing, and no one's really asking, why are we delivering this piece of change? Don't keep going if that's happening. Why? Because you will misalign your efforts, time will be wasted, and people will become confused working on different elements that they themselves think are important, but you're not moving together in one collective goal. Everybody is busy, but not progressing the right thing. You're not all moving and pulling in the same direction if you're not all clear on what the objectives are. What can be the cause of this? Often it's rushing past the planning phase and too quickly into delivery. You haven't spent long enough identifying what needs to be done, why and how, and effectively communicating that to make sure everybody's on the same page. You will notice a common theme when we talk about the solution to all of these, and it is pause. And as hard as that is to do when you're in a busy environment, if you don't pause, you're not going to deliver the change that's needed. So pause, revalidate the business case, and rework the definition of done. By that we mean, what does success look like? Run a workshop, for example, to reset the vision for the piece of change, the value that the change is supposed to be delivering, and how you're going to deliver that value, i.e. your deliverables, and who needs to be involved, your stakeholders. Walk out of that session clear on scope, timeline, and cost, and then go through a rebaselining exercise if that's needed to get everybody back on the same page. Red flag number 2, milestones keep slipping, and it gets to the point where nobody's surprised. Delays are becoming normal, and no one's talking about the real cause of these delays. So we mentioned a moment ago, it's normal every now and again to get a red status, occasional. But if it's happening continually, your timeline is constantly getting pushed out, nobody's really pushing you to rebaseline because they know that a month from now it's going to happen again. You start to the urgency of the project will start to reduce, and you will start to erode confidence. Costs will spiral, and the benefits, the reason you're delivering the project in the first place, will become delayed, if delivered at all. The first thing to do, surprise, surprise, take a pause. Hold a delivery health check. Your PMO, if you have a PMO, will have a health check sort of template or process. And if not, ask for one to be created, or reach out to Prospect Change, we can do one for you. But a health check is a very simple way that you can look through the entire project. Ideally, you're getting a third party to do this for you so that you're not marking your own homework, as it were. And they're looking at this completely separately to being involved in the project to identify what could be going wrong here. More than likely, it's too ambitious. The project is just not realistic in what it can deliver. If the timeline is constantly slipping out, either the timeline isn't realistic or you haven't got the support and the right people on the project that you need. They're usually the two main reasons for that. But to really validate it, hold a milestone retrospective. Look at all those milestones that have slipped and ask yourself why. Why have they slipped? And if we could go back in time, what would we have done about them? That gives you some great learning for what you could do to avoid this happening for future milestones. Look forward at the milestones you've got and visualize what we call the burn down rate. In order to hit each of those milestones, what are the tasks sitting underneath that milestone that you need to achieve? And do you have the right time and the right people involved to deliver them? Red flag number 3. The same issues keep coming back. You're firefighting the same problems week after week. Very similar to the milestones one, but it isn't necessarily just around milestones. So what's the impact of this? You're stuck in a reactive loop. Root causes go unaddressed. Costs and capacity is drained by repetition. You're never getting to the root cause. So for example, you may have a supplier that is delivering a piece of software for you. And every single week, there are issues with the supplier. It's the same issue. It might be that the right resources are not turning up to the meetings. It might be that the quality that's being delivered is not right. Or it might be that you're not receiving transparent updates from the supplier. But week after week, the same problem is arising. You're having the same conversation. It feels like Groundhog Day, deja vu. The simplest way to address this is the 5 whys. Why is it happening? Why is it happening? Why is it happening? Keep asking why until you have no more answers. Usually takes 5 whys, and then you've got to your root cause. Why has this happened? Then you get an answer. But why is it happening? But why is it happening? Keep asking those 5 whys. And assign ownership to fix root issues, not symptoms. So once you understand what's causing this, is the supplier not capable of delivering what it is that they set out within their proposal to you? Is it a capacity issue? Is it a capability issue? Is it a communication issue, for example? Get to that root cause and then find out who's accountable for delivering it. It might be you as project manager. It might be that that supplier is managed by your IT directorate. It might be your sponsor that needs to get involved, but assign accountability and figure out how you're going to get to the root cause and solve that root cause. Red flag number 4. And I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the silent sponsor and people not communicating. And I also mentioned it when we talked about debate among your team and challenge among your team. It's healthy. If you deliver a project update to your project team and there is silence in that room and that becomes the norm, that's not because everybody is in wonderful agreement with you and nobody has anything to say. Believe me, project teams always have something to say. They will create the most fantastic debate when they are engaged. If they're not saying anything and this becomes the norm, either it's a result of disengagement, and that could be because they don't feel they're being listened to, understood, or heard, or it's fear. So if you're running that project like a dictatorship, I'm sure you're not, but that has happened, and I've seen that happen. And it will result in stakeholders and project team members just no longer raising points because there's a fear of being shot down or the fear of being wrong. It's not inclusive, safe environment for them. As a result, you lose ground and insights that were really vital to the project are lost. And really importantly, it's the people that you're leading within the project that have the insights and know the risks and know what good looks like within this project. That's why they're on the team. If you're not hearing from them, you are not going to deliver a solution that the organisation needs. More often than not, a project manager themselves are not an expert in what's being delivered. It's the project team that are the expert. Your responsibility is to lead that team and listen to that team. So what do we do about this? It needs switching around. You need to be hearing from your project team. Start asking very direct questions, such as, what is your confidence level this week? And go around the table. And ask everybody, what's one risk you see? And again, go around the table. What's your challenge? What's your concern? The status report, for example, should not be done in silo. It should be done with your project team's input in terms of confidence levels, risks, concerns, achievements, lessons learned that you want to flag to the wider community of practice. And utilise working groups, not just steering groups. Steering groups is your higher level of hierarchy when it comes to governance. That's when you've got your sponsor in the room. That's when you've got some real senior stakeholders in the room. The working group is when you really get into the detail of what you're delivering, what your concerns are, and then you use the messages that come out of those working groups to feed into your steering groups. If you're not doing working groups, bring them in, and they need to be more frequent than your steering groups. Red flag number 5 out of 9. Stakeholders are disengaged or constantly unavailable. Similar to project team, but when we talk stakeholders, it's those outside of your project team. So they're not on the ground delivering with you, but you either need to consult with them because they have something important to tell you about a particular process, way of working, or you need to inform them of something. If you need to inform them of a piece of change and they're not turning up to town halls or meetings or workshops whereby you're communicating something, your message is not going to get out. You're not going to deliver effective change management. And if you need to consult them, for example, during testing, you need to test a particular solution, you go through user acceptance testing, UAT. Those that are going to be using the solution you're rolling out, you will usually bring them in at that point to test the proposed solution before it goes live. That's a period of consultation. You're asking them, does it work? Are there any challenges, problems we need to fix? If you don't have engaged stakeholders at that point, they're not going to turn up, which means you're not going to know what's wrong until it's rolled out. And the change is not going to be successful or effective. You need to hold a reset meeting with those stakeholders. Find out who your consulted are, find out who your engaged are. You should have, as a project manager, a stakeholder map that links into a visual stakeholder matrix. So you are incredibly clear who you need to speak to, engage with, when and how. And that should be built into your project plan. And when you say you're going to engage at that point so you don't erode confidence with your stakeholders. Common red flag number 6. There's more focus on delivery dates than actually delivering value. The pressure to just get it done is overriding good decisions. I have seen this over and over again. And if this happens, you are at risk of delivering a project but not realizing effective change. Could you just flip that on for a second for me, Jen? Thank you. So whilst you deliver something, it's not guaranteed to be something useful. And corners get cut, leading to downstream failures because you want to hit the date rather than hit the quality. What do you need to do about this? This is a really important one. Refocus conversations on outcomes and benefits. Stop talking constantly about the deliverable and what you're doing. Talk about why you're doing it and what good looks like. For example, to achieve X, we must do Y. To achieve effective engagement with our teams, we must hold weekly update meetings. Well, in order to get that update, the engagement with your teams, what do those updates need to look like? We need to have cameras on from everybody so we know people are engaged with us. If we say we're having the meeting, we need to have the meeting. We need to ask for feedback at the end of the meeting so people are sharing their views. And then we need to respond to that feedback with a you said, we did approach so people feel heard and listened to. That will mean that the meetings you hold with people in order to get the engagement actually result in engagement rather than ticking a box. Yes, it means more activities. Yes, it will take more time, but it will give you the outcome, not just the output. Add value checkpoints, not just date milestones. So yes, we've delivered all of these particular milestones, but therefore where should we be as a project? If we've delivered the next five milestones, should we have a system that's been created and tested and hit a certain KPI in terms of success rate as a result of that testing? So what does good look like for each of those milestones? What is success? What does success look like, and why are we doing this? These are questions you must ask yourself continually throughout the project. Especially applies for a very long project where you can lose sight of the reason and the purpose. Red flag number 7. Dependencies are unclear, or they're clear but are constantly being missed. It's like building a puzzle without seeing the picture on the box. When you are delivering a project, that is one single project in a portfolio of change for your organisation. There is an entire jigsaw that needs to come together for all of these projects to be successful. In an ideal world, an organisation would have strategic goals that they need to achieve. They cannot achieve those strategic goals without change, and you do not achieve change without the successful delivery of successful projects. Those projects within that portfolio will have numerous dependencies on them. It can be people dependencies. That's probably the most common dependency. Everybody needs a particular person at a particular point, and that one person is stretched across 12 different projects. And if they're not released by one project in May, the next project that needs them in June won't have them, which will mean that project that needs them in June is going to be pushed out. And what do you get? You get the domino effect. So understanding what your dependencies are will show you what your critical milestones are that you have to hit. And if you find that you're not going to hit one of those milestones, you can be clear on what that means to other projects that are dependent upon you, and vice versa. If you are dependent on another project, if you've got the right process in place, you will be informed when another project has slipped, which is going to impact you as a result. Map all key dependencies and try to do this visually if possible. Ideally, you need your PMO to help you with this, because they're the ones that knit together those projects. They are the air traffic control of change. They know which projects are dependent on another and the knock-on effect if one of those projects slips. Where do you have an internal dependency? Where do you have an external dependency? And where is there an outbound dependency? For example, it might be coming from a supplier. Make sure you're checking your dependencies on a weekly basis and make sure there are milestones linked to those dependencies included within your project plan so that you can communicate effectively if something slips. And don't assume another project knows about your dependency. Communicate it. We call it the handshake approach. Have the conversation, make sure they're very clear on what you need and why, and that both projects, delivering the dependency and receiving the dependency, have that in their plans. Second to last red flag, number 8, the delivery team is burning out. The pace is unsustainable and morale is cracking. At the beginning, we talked about resource challenges. Every project, I would imagine, is facing resource challenges at the moment. And so this is a very likely red flag that your project might face. If you're seeing that your delivery team is burning out, they're becoming exhausted, quality will start to drop, mistakes will start to increase, and you risk losing some really key people that your project needs. As project manager, it's a really difficult position to be in because you're responsible for recognizing and highlighting this. But often the solution is outside of your control. Often the solution is made by the budget holder. But run a temperature check. Just because what you can do about it is limited does not mean you are not accountable for flagging this and raising this. Don't pretend it's not happening and sweep it under the carpet. Run a temperature check regularly. Every time you speak to your team, ask them, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Does what you have on your plate right now feel really realistic? In order to surface those hidden pressures and address it if you can in the short term. For example, there might be things that you can do that you've agreed to deliver within the project that are not necessarily essential. So those additional elements that are not essential for the success overall of change. Reassess what you've got on everybody's plate and think about where you can move things around and come at it as a team, discuss it as a team. Ask them, you're feeling under pressure right now. You have a lot on your plate. What can we do to help you right now? And listen to what your team members tell you. And use the governance to your advantage. Capture it as an incredibly high risk if that's what you're seeing and raise it for escalation. Raise it up to your sponsor. Capture it at your steering groups. Raise it as a portfolio risk. Do everything you can through the routes of governance to escalate. Be realistic. If your teams cannot deliver things, the project will go red. It's as simple as that. So if you're not heard and you're not listened to, you just have to use the governance to your advantage and flag it as red if that happens and things start to slip. Now, last but not least, number 9. You're spending more time explaining the project than progressing it. And by that, I don't mean wonderful communication where everybody's listening to you. I mean you're in defense mode. So you're hearing from stakeholders all over the organization that they have worries, they have concerns, this doesn't feel like the right solution. But you may also be dealing with the fact that you just have to deliver this. And it's more about delivery than it is quality, which was one of the earlier red flags. So you're in defense mode. You're telling the same story. It's the right thing. It's the right thing. We've just got to get it out there. We'll fix the problems post go live. Your energy ends up going into appearance and politics, not outcomes. Morale gets impacted. It's not a nice place to be. And ultimately, you're not going to deliver a change that those using it are going to be able to receive. Of course, there are challenges when it's a regulatory piece of change and you have to hit a particular deadline. But if you're in that situation where you just have to deliver regardless, be transparent and communicate that, and have an embed and sustain plan post-delivery that means any problems that need to be fixed, whether that process or technical or people, there is a plan in place to effectively deliver that. But if you're not tied to a deadline, pause. Take a pause and think about how you get people back on board and you hear what they're saying and you implement changes to what you're delivering that is effective and will be received. As we mentioned earlier, do not deliver projects without realizing change. It's pointless. So things that you can do. You can use a one-page summary to simplify communication. Think about the key messages, the burning platform, if it really is that essential, and have that on a one-page communication. That helps you when delivering the message, and it helps maintain consistency as well. Focus on value delivery, not just reporting. Look at what the value is that this project is going to be delivering, and listen to the feedback you're receiving to see if what you're hearing would increase and enhance the value. And consider the strength of your change management and communication. If you're feeling in defense mode, people don't feel like they're ready to receive the change. Think about how you're managing this from a people perspective. How are you able to get your teams on board and wider teams within the organisation? If you have a change manager in the organisation, bring them in. If you don't have the luxury of that, then look at change management techniques and think about how you can bring them into your project. Any questions at this point? I'm going to take a pause on any of those red flags. Let's talk about our toolkit then. Could we just move on a slide, Jen? Oh no, we're not at toolkit, apologies. We're forgetting a very important slide, which has our rescue strategy. So we've talked about, oh great, thank you, Liz. Great to know. We've talked about individual red flags and what you can do about them on an individual basis. But in terms of a single strategy that you can use, regardless of what issue or challenge your project is facing, this is one I'd like you to remember: rescue. So think of that word. It's really applicable, so hopefully not one that you would forget. R stands for reassess. So as the lead of this project, you have recognised there is a challenge. You need to reassess what's happening, regardless of what that challenge is, whether it's people, whether it's milestones, whether it's your communication, whether it's cost, whether it's quality of delivery, whatever challenge you're facing, reassess. Take a step back, pause. What are we really trying to achieve? What does good look like? Is it still worth doing? Every now and again, you will start a project that at the time of commencing, it's the right thing to do, but the world moves on, and it's okay to stop a project if it's no longer the right thing, if it's no longer going to bring value to an organisation. So be brave and ask the question. Engage. Round up your people and get your sponsor and key players back in the game. At this point, I'm talking your project team. Engage everybody. Ask them the same questions that you've asked yourself when it comes to reassess. Make sure everybody's on the same page. You're clear about what you're doing, why, when, how, and who is accountable for what. F. Stabilize. Let's assume you've asked the questions of what does success look like and re-established. You've considered is it still worth doing, and the answer is yes. You've got all your people in the same place, on the same page, everyone is going in the same direction in agreement. How do you stabilize this? And specifically, I'm talking about scope, timeline, and cost. You've identified the quality, the why. Now let's make sure we're very clear on what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and what the scope is of what it is that you're delivering. It's that golden triangle. Next, communicate. Time to go back out from your internal project team and start communicating wider than that, to the wider portfolio, to the organisation as a whole. your stakeholders, whether consulted or informed, you may have to reset and re-baseline your project plan. So they need to go through your PMO and your governance structure in order to do that. But communicate to everybody that needs to hear the message. Keep it clear, simple, and visible. Don't use project jargon when going outside of the project team, especially to your stakeholders. Make sure everybody walks away from that communication knowing what's happening and why, and how they communicate back to you. Communication is a two-way street. Uplift. This is one you need to continue going with. How do you look after your team? How do you check in and celebrate progress and rebuild that energy? People will now be feeling probably quite excited if you've done the first few steps effectively. But confidence will have been eroded, and that can leave a bit of a wound behind. So continue to build up that energy, continue to check in with people, and continue to celebrate progress. Keep close to your project team. And finally, E. Execute. Time to get on with it. You know what you're doing, why, how, and when. Now relaunch that project with focus. Deliver what you now have validated truly matters with the right people and with a plan that is realistic and deliverable. So remember rescue, reassess, engage, stabilize, communicate, uplift, execute. You're ready to go. Now I think we're ready for the toolkit. It's always really useful to have some tools, for the want of a better term, in your back pocket for when trouble hits your project. So these are just a few suggestions to have there in your back pocket ready. And if you work in a PMO or you have a PMO in your organisation, ask if they have these, because they're very, very useful. So we've got 6 here, and some of them we've talked about already. A project health check. This is a template and a process all in one. It's better for that project health check to be done by a third party, i.e. your PMO team, or it can be a peer health check, another project doing a review on another project. If you're a project manager, having a health check done to you, let's be honest, nobody likes that. It feels like your homework is being marked, and it's always a little bit uncomfortable when you're getting the feedback. I'm not sure there's any way completely around that, because you're trying to do your best and you're having a third party tell you where they think you could do it a little bit better. But go through the pain, trust me. If you've got somebody look at things and they highlight something that could really improve and make a change, it is genuinely worth it. Put yourself through the pain and see what other people could identify around your project that can uplift, strengthen, and improve what it is that you're delivering. Next, a rapid risk and issue review. So by this, it's a bit of a process really. Every project should have a RAID log, and within that RAID log is a risk section and an issue section. But when you hit a problem, take a pause and don't assume that you've captured all your risks and issues effectively. There is a risk with risks that you get into a bit of a mundane kind of process with it. These are our risks. Are we on track with them yet? And you're not really going much deeper, and you're not really truly analysing them. Get in a room with the perspective and focus of asking, why has this happened? What is the issue? What are our risks? Quick fire. Every single risk that could be derailing us right now, any issue that could be derailing us right now, quick fire. Let's talk about them and how we're going to get them back on track. Everything's off. No rules around this one. Throw everything out there. When you really focus, it's surprising what things you might uncover that you hadn't even thought about. Give yourself half an hour even and just throw things out there to see what people can uncover in that time. Stakeholder remapping. Again, what's quite common in projects is that you would spend a fair bit of time at the beginning of a project mapping all the stakeholders, who needs to be engaged. And if you've got a good stakeholder mapping template, it will ask you, why do you need to engage with them? What do you need to do? Where are they right now? How are you going to get them to the place that you need them to be? What's their influence level? What's their interest level? And then you will have a visual that sits behind that. However, it's very common then that you just park that and leave it. What should happen is the tasks that are identified to move your stakeholders from where you believe they are right now to where you need them to be should be mapped within your project plan. So you're delivering on those tasks and you're moving your stakeholders forward. And on a monthly basis, you're reassessing your stakeholder map. What have we done? Was that successful? Did it have the outcome we expected it to have? Because people are unpredictable, let's be honest. So you wrote that based on people and what you thought they needed from you to take them from one place to another. It's a whole set of assumptions. Were those assumptions valid? Did it take the stakeholder to the place you needed them to be, or do you need to rework that and do something else? It's a living, breathing document that should be linked to your plan and, where applicable, linked to your dependencies and linked to your risks as well. So if you're having problems, look back at your stakeholder map and remap it with a visual, as well as, for example, an Excel version. Think about a 30, 60, 90-day SMART recovery roadmap. So, for example, what do you need to do in the next 30 days to get your project on track? And I want you to think back to that rescue framework. Ideally, that rescue framework happens fast within the first 30 days. But then what do you need to do in the following 30 days, so 60 days from the moment you're writing this, in order to continue to embed and sustain what you identified within your rescue framework? And the same for the following 30 days that takes you 90 days on. That avoids the risk of delivering a rescue framework and everything falling back into its old ways by day 40. So what do you do by day 30? What needs to be done by day 60 and day 90? And make that SMART. How do you measure success there? How do you know when you've achieved it? And build that recovery roadmap into your plan with some key governance-based milestones. We talked about communication, a communication reset, and I want to link this with the second one, which is the burning platform messages. The burning platform, if you've not heard this, is a really good visual that says you're stood on a platform right now that is on fire, and you need to get off of that burning platform onto another platform that isn't on fire. How do you do that? It's about jumping from one to the other. The project is what's taking everybody from that burning platform to the safe, non-burning platform. This is important for very urgent projects, usually if they're regulatory or they're a project that is in response, a reactive project in response to disaster. For example, think about what M&S are going through at the moment. They will have a burning platform project, or probably numerous burning platform projects on the go right now to bring rescue to them as an organisation. What is that burning platform message? Do not overuse this. That's really important. Only use a burning platform message when it's genuinely an urgent delivery that you're getting over the line. Otherwise, people won't take you seriously. It's like the boy that cried wolf story, you know. But communication reset. Ask yourself, have I been head down so focused on delivery that I forgot to communicate to my team? Have I been head down so focused on delivery that I forgot to communicate with my stakeholders? And is that why they're not turning up to the meetings? And is that why they're not engaged in UAT? Communication reset. So those 6 elements, having your back pocket, having your project recovery toolkit ready to pull out when your project is struggling. Thanks, Jen. The role of a PMO. It would not be right of us as Prospect Change, significant advocates for the role of a PMO, not to mention how vital the role of PMO is when it comes to projects and keeping projects healthy. So what are the key 5 things that a PMO does in order to keep projects healthy? 1, PMOs make sure a project has clarity from the start. It helps to define success and align that project with strategy before moving on to shape that project in terms of scope, time, and cost. The processes put in place by PMO means that a project must go through those steps as part of its planning phase before it can get into delivery. Going through those steps alone significantly reduce the risk of a number of those red flags that we've already talked about. And an effective PMO guarantees that a project will go through those steps. A PMO has early warning systems in place. Because a PMO is tracking progress and risks, and a PMO is very experienced when it comes to portfolio and project delivery, and also is slightly separate to the project, it is able to identify those red flags, often well before the project manager does. Because project managers and project teams are so into the delivery and into the detail that they often don't lift up their heads long enough or don't have time to notice that something is going wrong. The role of the PMO is to constantly be on the lookout for those red flags and highlight them in a way that is supportive and outcome and solution focused. Very strong governance. A PMO ensures decisions are timely, escalations are clear, and ownership is understood. When you, as a project manager, come across problems in your project that you have very little control over, we talked about resource challenges, for example, budget constraints, sponsorship unavailability, sponsors being unavailable, you will love governance, because it is governance that will allow you to escalate problems and challenges and risks. And it is the governance that will ensure you get a solution. It is then that a project manager will often turn to their PMO and seek help in order to get through to a resolution. And the PMO really comes alive at that point, because that's when the PMO really does add value in utilising that governance to get solutions for the project. Capacity and portfolio visibility. So a PMO helps prevent resource overload and project clashes. Think again about the air traffic control analogy. Your PMO is overseeing a number of flights, a number of projects at any one time. They know if one flight, i.e. one project, gets delayed, what that would mean to other projects in the portfolio, or other flights waiting to take off on the runway. And if that happens, they can help make a decision of, actually, do we decouple it? Do we pull that project out of the equation altogether, i.e. cancel the flight, so that we don't have that knock-on effect on all the other projects waiting to take off or waiting for a particular deliverable? And then we bring that project back in at another time when the dependency is removed. They're able to effectively make those decisions. Or if they can't remove it, i.e. cancel it, then they will understand and manage that knock-on effect across the portfolio. And in order to do all of this, the PMO provides best practice playbook, a toolkit for the delivery of projects and programs and how they're managed at portfolio level. They bring proven tools, templates, and repeatable process to drive consistency across that portfolio. And how does a PMO help when things do go off track? Because even with a PMO, things do go off track. We talked about health checks. So your PMO can come in and do a health check and diagnostic to help you understand, why is this happening? What's gone wrong? And they're able to do that quickly and effectively in a way that is supportive and part of that project team. Another real value add is neutral facilitation. There are many points within a project where you need facilitation, and often as project manager, you end up stepping in and delivering that facilitation workshop. However, your PMO could step in and do that for you, which means you're part of the discussion. You're contributing to the discussion rather than having to facilitate and lead on it. This can be risk management workshops. It can be dependency workshops, planning workshops, and also lessons learned. It can be taking a pause at each phase of the life cycle to understand what went really well that we want to replicate, what didn't go very well that we want to avoid. Recovery planning support. So we talked about that 30, 60, 90-day roadmap, recovery roadmap. Your PMO is best placed to help you with that, with the facilitation of workshops, with the building in of the plan, and with understanding what all those tasks are to be built into that plan. Risk and dependency management. So where you have a risk that is a very, very high risk and could derail your project, they can help escalate that for you. And when you need management of dependencies that are outside of your project, or their portfolio dependencies, your PMO is accountable for overseeing those dependencies across the portfolio. We talked about it from the air traffic control analogy a moment ago, and how one project or flight impacts others. The PMO oversees all of that and will manage communication effectively. And a great PMO will coach and uplift you as project manager and project team. They're a friendly face when things are going wrong, to encourage you, to give you toolkits, to give you support, to use the governance to your advantage, and to be your voice when it comes to rebaselining and resetting expectations, so that you can focus on what you need to do and when, and the governance elements can be picked up by the PMO. They will really help you have those difficult conversations when it comes to resetting and rebaselining expectations. You can see why we love PMO.
Well,